get onto our social media platforms already to be able to follow up this show. We are streaming live on YouTube. Be able to share with your friends who are in Uganda and out of Uganda, all over East Africa, to be able to watch this show and be able to benefit. Now today, we want to look at how the East African community is going to help us as the youth to be able to prosper in terms of the economy, the politics, and us being able to come together to make sure that this big population, understanding that of recent South Sudan joined the East African community with over 11 million people right now. And then of recent we also had the Democratic Republic of Congo joining the East African community with over 90 million people. And right now we can be able to connect to the Indian Ocean, but also on the other end to the Mediterranean Sea. So how does all that come into, tangible impact in as far as, transforming the lives of the youth and all of us as East African people? And all that is what we're going to be understanding, and we'll be talking to a number of young people to understand what's their aspect as far as, the East African community is concerned and how they think that can help them to be transformed. I also have a gentleman that I'm going to be talking to, helping us to be able to deliberate on today's topic, a very knowledgeable young gentleman. Welcome to Youth of Purpose.
Thank you, ndugu Tumukunde. Habari zenyu ndugu, wadada, all East Africans. My names are Inesas Hilary, the Deputy National Coordinator for Team Sarawa IKM, which is a presidential mobilization team for the President under the patronage of the First Lady, Mama Janet. And I am a former contestant Youth MP for Western Region who participated in the last election. Therefore, I understand the youth aspect, I understand the youth challenges. And here we are talking about the role or the impact of East African community to the betterment of our colleagues, most especially the youth. To take you back, first of all, we needed to first understand the brief background of the East African community. Before colonialism, East Africa was one, Africa was one. But after scramble and partition, because of the selfish interests of the Wabeberu, we had to...
Who are the Wabeberu?
Wabeberu, I'm talking about the colonialists. Wabeberu is Swahili in Swahili. You understand that now, here in Uganda, we are supposed sooner we shall be speaking Swahili, so it's better for us to begin practicing.
All over East Africa?
All over East Africa, because it is the unifying language. Yeah. When the colonialists or the Wabeberu came and they partitioned our land, that's when we had protectorates, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and then when the protectorates, because they have their own interests, they wanted to control, like we were under British and Kenya. The first organization of East Africa was formed in 1917. And later on, they were later joined by Tanganyika in 1927. From there, a number of organizations, trade treaties, started coming in. But after independence, that's when there was the first formation of the East African community under the leadership of the two great presidents of East Africa. Then there were the three countries, that's Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. Then later on, because of bad leadership in 1977, because of bad leadership of our then president, Idi Amin, his actions led to the collapse of our community. That was 1977. And after then, when the revolutionaries of the NRM, the current government, took over power, they initiated the program of reviving the East African community, and there are a number of treaties, a number of engagements that took place from 1990s, early 90s, up to 2000, when officially the East African community was, the treaty of East African Community was signed, and that marked the beginning of the East African Community with 3 countries. Later on, other countries joined in. That was Burundi and Rwanda. And from there, later on, many countries kept on coming. And the recent ones was South Sudan of 2012, of 2016, and the DRC, which you all know, it is the recent country to join us, East Africa. So that is a brief background of the East African Federation. And why are we the youth, why should we embrace this unity? Number one, we need to understand where did it come from. We need to first echo back, we go back and look at the revolutionaries. That
before embracing it, I would like us to understand we are blaming the Wabeberus and stuff. I want to understand what was the contribution of the young people in making sure that the East African community thrives during the times when it was in existence. And how were the young people, for example, benefiting, but also how were the ordinary citizens benefiting from this? Because it seems much of what we see with the East African community, it seems to be so much political than social. Why is it that the East African people are not as that much connected and integrated as we see it up in the political space?
Number one, you need to know very well that before we got our independence, all the East African states, we needed to understand that most of those elites that were fighting for the East Africa, for independence, after independence, they had their disagreement. Do you know when they came, they brainwash. Coming together, yet we were once together, sometimes becomes a problem. And you know their process of divide and rule. When leaders came, of course they kept on using divide and rule. That's why you could see that Idi Amin, at the one moment, he led to the collapse of the first East African community. It is upon that background that we never gave it attention to make sure that the idea of uniting, of coming together as East Africa, never went deep to the common wananchi.
So was the East African community that too weak that it had to collapse just because of one leader?
It wasn't too weak, but it was because at the moment it had spent a little time for it to have a firm ground, and there are many things that are considered to make something, a treaty more stronger. And you know, there is a number of things that are done, a process. But as far, and that one comes with commitment from the leaders of the partner states. Like now here we are, we have good leadership. People, when we talk about the East Africa, people they are looking at it in a political perspective. But here I want the youth, I encourage the youth to look at it in an economic perspective. How will it impact on my well-being as a youth, an educated person, an elite, semi-elite, even those who are not elites? How will
I think it's very unfair when you say it's the people that are looking at it in a political perspective. First of all, I don't think the East African people or Ugandans or let's say Rwandans, the ordinary citizens, had anything to do with the closing of the Rwanda-Ugandan border. I don't think the citizens of Uganda or the citizens of Kenya had anything to do with the banning of certain Ugandan products that were going to Kenya. I don't think Ugandans here have anything to do with the Ugandan traders that are dying in South Sudan. So before you work on those fundamentals, how do you think we are going to have a successful East African community?
It all is about sensitization. Closing the borders, those are issues that I can't discuss. They have those that are supposed to discuss them.
So don't you think that's an issue? If as East Africans, if as a citizen, you cannot discuss about an issue of closing a border, saying there are specific people to discuss about that?
Because my brother, there are things that needs diplomacy. There are those that are supposed to handle them, and by the way, they have been handled amicably, and the borders are open.
Do we know how? Do you know, for example, why the border was closed?
The border could, I may not know, but as far as I know and as far as I am concerned right now, is that are the borders open? Yes, they are open. Then since if they are open, what should we do to make sure that they don't close again?
But you cannot do anything because you don't even know. For example, in the first place,
our role is to advise.
Anyway, I'm being unfair to you.
Yes.
I know you will not have anything in as far as that conversation of closing borders. But for example, the issue of traders dying in South Sudan, you know, citizens killing each other, you know.
Now, on the issue of South Sudan, number one, you know the background of South Sudan. You know how long it takes for a country to stabilize if it is from civil war, when it is coming from civil war. For example, before they were under they were with Sudan, the Northern Sudan, Khartoum government, and there was a long process of struggling for the self-determination. That came, but when it came, it seems some leaders were not ready for that self-determination. And that's where those problems come, challenges come. That's why even as we had them at one moment, we don't had such issues at one moment, even in other partner states of East Africa. So let's trust the process, and with time, I believe South Sudan will stabilize. That's why we have them here. When you meet them, we are brothers and sisters. What we are looking at, whoever, every leader, I encourage every leader to make sure that he or she spreads Ubuntu, togetherness, humanity as East Africans. What do we need? We are the youth. For example, DRC has right now the largest population in East Africa. As a youth, what do I look at gaining from this population, this market coming to East Africa? I am a youth here in Uganda. I am unemployed, simply because there are no opportunities. What do I look at? What is my view over DRC coming on board? Number one, I expect Ugandan investors to go and create many job opportunities in DRC. And when they create them, who are those people to work there? In case DRC, they are no technocrats, and you are here, you are an IT personnel, you have no job. It means the job has been created. That's what we should look at as young people in East Africa, young people in Uganda, young people in Tanzania, young people in Kenya, DRC itself, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. That's what we are looking at, creating market, creating jobs. And besides that, once we create jobs, because we are the youth, we have to believe that there is a generation, you know, there is what we call negation of the negation. There is always a replacement of the old by the new generation. We as the youth, do we understand why our leaders are trying to bring us together as East Africans? What are the reasons for bringing us together? Number one, we need to know, historically we are one people, we are brothers and sisters. Look at the borders, how they separated people. You'll find a larger population in DRC like Bakonjo, majority in DRC. A few people are this side and you find their kingdom is this side. You go to Tanzania, you go, languages, we are together, we are the same people. Go to Kenya, you find the Mudama this side, you find another Mudama the other side. But to visit a relative the other side, you need a passport, yet you are one people. So that is a historical, cultural, social reason why we need to unite. Two, we need to look ahead. Ahead, where are we looking at? We are looking at the future, 50 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. We are looking at the competition all over the world. We are looking at how world powers are struggling for supremacy. Where does it leave us as East Africans? Supremacy comes with political power, which is coupled with, or which is backed up by strength, the stronger economy. If you don't have a stronger economy, your bargaining power internationally is very, very weak. That's why we need, if we have a strong economy, then we have a stronger political bargaining power on the round the table world over.
First of all, I want to ask, how much are the youth involved in the affairs of the East African community? For example, do we have any youth representative in IALA? Or when all these, affairs of the East African community are being deliberated on, do we have youths represented?
Very nice question. as somebody who had contested in the previous elections, I believe that is a good, that would be like to have affirmative action, to have equal representation in or having all stakeholders on the decision making of the same people that we are making decisions for. I believe having a youth representative in the East African IALA would be a good suggestion. And if the East African leaders, the East African Legislative Assembly, the East African Community Ministers, Secretary, if they can really create also a space, create a slot for the youth representatives, even women representative, it would be good, because what has it done here? It's a lot. If it can be replicated in the whole of East Africa, then that would be very good. It means that the youth are not being represented, rather are not being represented by a different generation, but themselves are participating. They are representing themselves on how they should be governed, on how their future should be determined. And that would be a very good idea.
Tell us about the East African free market zones and how much sensitization is being done to the young entrepreneurs to be able to take up these opportunities.
Yes, a lot. There are many activities that have been going on, conferences, but you know, me as an individual, I prefer actions, because like some leaders in Tanzania, and partly here, we have seen some leaders here trying to emulate what other leaders in other East African countries were doing. Let's have hands-on. If we talk about this, then it must be done, not only always spending money in conferences, in seminars. At the end of it all, you find something, a lot of funds that can impact and create something on ground is spent in allowances and all that. But all in all, a lot of sensitization is required. A lot of sensitization is supposed to be done to ensure that East Africans understand, even a person from my village understands that there is an East African community which is trying to unite all East African together. There is an East African community which is trying to create a very bigger voice internationally. East Africans, even my village person should be able to be proud of being an East African, not locking ourselves into Uganda. You ask somebody, even there are some people you find they are who are elites, but they don't understand what is happening in East Africa.
Amazing. Talking about being proud of being an East African,
yes.
How can the young people position themselves right to be able to benefit from the opportunities that are here in the East African community? Talk about the markets. How can they position themselves right?
First of all, one, they need to embrace the idea of being together. Number two, they need to understand the reasons as to why we need peace. Now, if I am talking about peace, or if I am talking about stability, I'm not talking about the stability of Uganda alone. I'm talking about the stability of other brothers, sisters. That is DRC and South Sudan that have for a long time been experiencing instability. For example, how does it affect the common person, especially the youth? In a place where there is instability, it means that there will be no room for doing business. There will be no room for having formal education. Here we are talking about like DRC. They are always running here and there, running to camps, running to neighboring states. Staying all the time in concentrated camps.
The same with South Sudan.
The same with South Sudan. But here we are like, no, if we come together, like now we are looking at deploying the East African standby force into DRC to pacify the area, to encourage people, those that are having arms, to lay down their tools and have peace. We come to the round table, create space for the young people, create space for the young people to go to school, to study, to have jobs, those that have at least achieved or gone to school and graduated. That's what we are looking at. Because in an instability, because most of the people that are being recruited into fighting instability are young people. if you have been following everything that has been happening in DRC, most of the young people, the one they are recruiting to be jihadists, are very young people, innocent people. So what can we do now that the DRC is part of us as East Africans? We need to encourage them to come, all those conflicting factions, come to the round table, and other factors, using other factors to make sure that there is no war, there is no instability. Because I believe those that are pushing for instability in DRC, South Sudan, are those that don't wish South Sudan well, and I don't believe they are citizens of DRC or citizens of East Africa. They are looking at creating instability to make sure that they can be able to exploit resources without value addition and take them. After exploiting them, such resources which belongs to the citizens of the country cannot at the end or at the end of it all create any positive impact to the common person, most especially the youth. Because when we talk about the youth, I talk about myself as a youth. I'm looking about tomorrow. If you come and mine resources here, without you take it the way it is, and you make sure that you create whereby I can run away from the place where I am, and I go to the concentration camp, you have taken the resources without helping me, the owner of the resources. Then at the end of it all, I have no future. It means that by making sure that East Africa is together, we are ensuring stability, we are ensuring defense, such that we create hope for the youth.
Exactly. Talking about togetherness, Hilary.
Yes.
We understand that DRC alone cannot be able to provide a solution to the challenges they are facing and the exploitation that is happening to them right now.
Yes.
How can we make sure that the East African young people get to work together such that a young person here in Uganda will feel concerned if something wrong is happening in DRC, in South Sudan, in Kenya, in Tanzania, Burundi, and Rwanda?
There is a lot that needs to be done, because when we are looking at that, there are things we look at. One is social factors. What can unite us? What is our identity? We have a common language which we had before even the colonialists, the Wabeberu came. We are connected culturally. We are brothers and sisters. That is the social capital, rather social factor, that makes us think deeper before making long actions. Number two, economic factors. Economic factors, and before economic factors, the first would be political. Because if it is political, here political comes with security and stability. When we analyze such factors, we think about them, embrace them, then an element of economy comes in. Because you can't do economics in an unstable environment. So here we are talking about those factors. That's where the youth, both elites and non-elites, should think, put the aim at and look at critically and make right decisions, and that's how we shall come together. And I want to thank the East African leaders. They have at least done their best to drive us to that direction. And you have been seeing everything. Recently, when there was instability in one of our region, that is DRC, immediately you heard that the chairperson of East African community called for a meeting in Nairobi, and all of a sudden you see things normalizing, because nobody wants to die, nobody wants to live in an environment that is not peaceful. Nobody wants to be in a house whereby you don't know whether it will be, you will wake up tomorrow morning alive. So that's what we are looking at as youth. The moment you have a stable environment, it's the day you will know that you will prosper, or it is the day you will know that your future is secured.
Just tell us what your message to the East African youth.
Number one, we are lucky to have DRC on board. We have South Sudan on board. Our population is bigger. We have enough space for the youth to do business. Let's grab that. At the moment, that's what we can do. And let's embrace the good programs that East African leaders that we have entrusted to drive us to that direction of having a political federation.
Okay.
Let's embrace them, take them wholeheartedly, because we are looking at fighting a common enemy. My fellow youth in East Africa, let's embrace good leadership. Let's avoid being used into chaos and going into recruited into other subversive tendencies that cannot add value to myself as an individual, but instead ruin my future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shirare, for speaking to us. I do believe you have been able to learn a thing or two. As young people, we need to work together for the common good, that's being united and making sure that the East African community prospers, and in the near future we can be able to have the East African Federation. We can be able to also unite politically and make sure that we have a strong force as the East African community that can be able to negotiate on behalf of the citizens and make sure that we benefit from the resources that we have, but also be able to save and have this community stay for the generations and generations to come. My name is Ivan Tumukunde. I thank you so much for watching this show. Follow me on all my social media platforms at I_Tumukunde on Twitter, Tumukunde on Instagram, and Tumukunde on Facebook. Nawashukuru sana kwa kutazama programu hii. Tuonane muda mwingine. Kwa heri.
Youth of Purpose.
Research the requirements of your customers. Many times, service providers guess customers' expectations, then deliver products that are out of sync with what the customers require. Therefore, do not rely on what you think